Now I think we're online. So throughout the summer, we've been looking at how to be good at life. And as we've been doing that, we've done this actually, this is the 6th time. And this is the 4th where we've been using a person or a personality to help us learn about what Proverbs is teaching. And one of the authors of the book of Proverbs characterized wisdom as a woman, remember? So the first one we learned from was prudence. We learned about wisdom from small creatures, from Agur. The power of the tongue last week from James. So today, in many of the decisions we make where we need wisdom, we're going to learn about managing not our money, not controlling how we spend our time, not even controlling how we speak to others. Instead, we're going to learn how to manage our relationships. But here we have to approach it a little different way. And that's where Woody comes in. You remember Woody from Toy Story, I hope by now. And if not, that's okay. Woody was kind of a leader of all the other toys because of his commitment to the child that owned him, as well as the child that owned the other toys. And if you don't know about these movies from Disney, they're basically an animation of what toys would think when we're not around. It's kind of how that goes. Well, these the movies, the 4 movies, the Toy Story movies, show that commitment that Woody has. Now you have in front of you, or on the back of your order of service, there is an outline that talks about how to be good at life with Woody and how we can manage our relationships. And the first thing we learn about that is that it's about commitment. There are 3 commitments that managing our relationship requires. And I'd like us to learn 3 principles that are important in any kind of relationship that we have. And I think Woody would show us this. These principles can strengthen all the relationships we have with others. And unlike this discernment and other areas of wisdom about our physical life, about our resources, and about other things, this is not something we use control for. With our appetites, we need to learn to control. With our money, we need to learn to steward it. With our time, we need to learn how to spend it right. Those are all a matter of control. But when it comes to relationships, that doesn't work. You can only commit to relationships. In fact, the more I talk to people over the years, and I think this is probably some of your experience too, the more someone tries to control us, the worse the relationship goes. And so I'm grateful to people who have insights along these lines that have been helpful to me. One of them is Pastor Steve May, and some of what I'm going to say today is some of the things that he has written. And he says that instead of trying to control our relationships, Proverbs 18 shows us 3 ways we can manage them with 3 commitments, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about, is these 3 commitments. So first of all, managing your relationships begins with a commitment to loyalty. Proverbs 18:24 tells us, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Now, you may have heard that verse spoken about before, and quite often it refers to the Lord Jesus as our friend that sticks closer than a brother. And as we sang this morning, what a friend we have in Jesus. And that's all true. But there are also friends down here who stick closer than a brother as well. Solomon differentiates between companions and close friends. Again, he says, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. There's a difference between knowing a person on the surface level and having a valued relationship with someone. And you can't have very many of those relationships, but we all need to have at least one or two. An acquaintance is a person you get along with as long as everything goes well. But the difference, and that's where loyalty comes in, is that a close friend stays with you no matter what. In that original Toy Story movie, the first one, the theme song is, You've Got a Friend in Me. Well, the lyrics from the first verse of that song, which by the way are printed on your outline today, remind us of this commitment to loyalty we find here in the book of Proverbs. That first verse says, you got a friend in me when the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed. You just remember what your old pal said, boy, you've got a friend in me. The people in your life are fallible. Surprise, as are we. They will make mistakes. Sometimes they make big mistakes, huge mistakes. Sometimes they can't help the mistakes they make. Sometimes they can. The question a person should ask if he wants to be a loyal friend is this: are you committed to them as long as they only do what you want them to do? Or is that person that you think you have as a friend, are they only committed to you as long as they think you're doing what they want? Are you committed to them only as long as you personally benefit, or are they committed only as long as they personally benefit? Can they depend on you even when they slip? Remember Job? He said this: a despairing man should have the devotion of his friends, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. Let me read that again. A despairing man should have the devotion of his friends, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. The fact is, it is sometimes tempting when someone is walking away from their faith, or when they're walking away from their own commitments, or they're making big mistakes and you want to stop them, to say, I don't think there's anything I can do. I give up. But the fact is, it may be your loyalty to that person that will help them get back on track. And if we're honest, the times that we have struggled and had that kind of a friend, that has helped us rethink what I'm doing. That helps me rethink what I'm doing. I walk with men all the time this way, and they walk with me in the same way. When things are getting rough and I'm saying, I don't want to do this anymore, they stick with me. And if they stick with you, you have a friend who's committed to loyalty. And that's what the author of the book of Proverbs is talking about here. In the Old Testament, there's a wonderful story about a prophet named Hosea. Hosea, his wife's name was Gomer, which is strange to our ears to have someone whose wife is named Gomer. But the story of Hosea's love for his wife is used as a picture of God's love for us. And what Hosea did, God used his life as a picture to the people of Israel. Hosea loved Gomer, but Gomer was a prostitute. And after Gomer had deserted Hosea again and again and again, he went looking for her again and again and again. He finally found her on the auction block, and she was going to be trafficked. We call it trafficking today, being sold as a human prostitute slave. At that auction, Hosea bought his own wife back and asked her to please come back, and said, you are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will live with you. Do you know anybody that does that? I don't. God wanted to show how loyal he was to his people. And that's the kind of friend that we're talking about here, loyalty no matter what. See, managing relationships isn't about control. Hosea could not possibly have controlled Gomer. It's about commitment. It begins with a commitment to give those people close to us that kind of loyalty, even when they let us down, even when they desert us, even when they fail. I don't know about you, but I need people like that in my life. You don't have to condone what they've done. You don't have to even say it's okay. Sometimes you just have to be there. And you can continue to be their friend. So in addition to this commitment to loyalty, people also need a commitment to listening, to listen to their friends. Communication is vital in every relationship we have in our lives, whether that's with a boss or with a coworker or a neighbor or even someone at the post office. You want them to hear what they're telling you. You need to be able to communicate. Proverbs 18:13 says this: he who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. The book of James also says, what we read from last week, it says, be quick to listen, slow to speak. Woody understands this too. You got troubles, I got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. We stick together and we'll see it through. Now, it sounds like loyalty, but I think it's also listening, because you've got a friend in me. See, Stephen Covey says, many people do not listen with intent to understand. They listen with their intent to reply. In other words, they're thinking about what they're going to say when they're talking to you. You ever talk to somebody like that? They're really not listening at all. They're just trying to figure out what they're going to say when you're done. That's not listening. Some of you know that I began some premarital sessions with a local couple here who are getting married in October. And I've done this a couple of times now since I've been here. And there's an exercise I always do with a couple during the first session I'm with them. It's a little window in what happens at these sessions. It's an awkward little exercise that encourages what we call active listening. See, active listening is the ability to let the other person, or in this case, the partner, know that you understand them. How? By restating exactly what they said. Good communication in any relationship depends on carefully listening to the other person. This exercise helps people become aware of that. And too often I find that I don't listen well if I interrupt the person or if I'm thinking about what I'm going to say instead of focusing on what they are saying. So this little exercise does this. I ask the couple to each make a wish list. So for instance, the one person may have on their wish list this: while I love spending time with you, I also want to spend time with my friends. I want to find some time to talk about this. So then I ask them, okay, read your wish to the other partner. And then the other partner has to repeat back exactly what you said, starting with this phrase: what I hear you saying is. So in this case, what I hear you saying is, while I love spending time with you, I also want to spend time with my friends. I want to find some time to talk about this. Now, I know nobody talks that way. There would be a lot of weird conversations if we did, but if I know I'm going to have to repeat back to you exactly what you said verbatim, I might listen a little differently. And I believe a lot of arguments between people could be avoided if that sort of listening was more common. You see, Proverbs 18:21 also says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. When we communicate well with each other, things go better. There's nothing manipulative about listening and speaking back this way. It's a matter of taking in what that other person says. You can't try to control someone by listening to them. Listening requires a commitment, a willingness to listen to the other person. And when someone listens, and I'm like I said, you ought to try it sometime. What I hear you saying is, some of our men's groups, we actually do that. We actually do that exercise so that we can understand that person needs to be heard, because they may be in a different place in their heart at that moment. And they may not realize what they're saying. And sometimes we just need to hear how we sound. So managing our relationships involves a commitment to listening. That helps us value someone as well. Now, thirdly, managing our relationships then calls for a commitment as well to love. The theme song from Toy Story goes on to show this. This is where Randy Newman, the guy that wrote the song, frames it for Woody this way. He says, some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. It's me and you, boy. We live in a society that equates love with emotion. And while there is a very strong emotional element to love, many people think love is just something you feel. And of course, there are some feelings, but the truth is, love is something you do. Love is a commitment that you make that is stronger than the feelings that you have. Remember 1 Corinthians 13? It tells us love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, it rejoices in the truth, it protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. I think it's good for us to read that over and over again occasionally. Because if this is what love is, then it's obvious that love is not simply about feelings or about control. It's about commitment. Love is an attitude that says, I want what is best for you. That may mean some hard realities sometimes, but it doesn't mean I control you. I find that too often what some folks masquerade as concern for others is really just an attempt to get them to do what they want rather than what is best. And that's a difficult thing when you realize that's what's going on. See, Proverbs tells us right at the beginning of chapter 18 in verse 1, an unfriendly man pursues selfish ends. He defies all sound judgment. Proverbs 19:22 tells us what a man desires is unfailing love, the kind of love that God gives us. See, that sort of commitment to love builds trust in others. If you can communicate to others that you are sincerely committed to what is best for them, if you can communicate your love for them and your loyalty to them, that's where trust begins to take root and form and grow. And folks, this is not just true in relationships with couples like I'm talking to in premarital sessions. This is true in all of our relationships. That trust will lead us to having a lot of influence in somebody else's life. And if we do the same, they will influence our lives. But first, we have to believe that they want the best for us. And they have to believe we want the best for them. Not just what is convenient, not just what's preferable. Love is something we do, and it's by definition unselfish in nature. And I know you know this because I've watched you do it. When we help others like we're going to do in the days to come, and like many of us have done, we show this kind of love and loyalty and commitment. You know, we have a lot of areas in our lives that we have to just manage. In many cases, that does mean taking control, grabbing the reins, hanging on. And so we have to take control of our time, take control of our money, take control of our diet even sometimes, and our work, as hard as all that is. But our relationships are different. It's not about control, it's about commitment. Just as Woody reminds us, as the years go by, our friendship will never die. you're going to see it's our destiny because you've got a friend in me. As you manage the relationships in your life, commitment to loyalty, commitment to listening, commitment to love, you could just be the best friend people in your life will ever have.